News!
What would happen, Elizabeth, if you got in the ring with Karis Artingstall?
I wouldn't say much. I wouldn't say much. It's just like when we get there. But I think it's gonna be a perfect match. Well, I'm not gonna say much, but I'm not sure she's gonna win the smoke.
Well, if I know her, Elizabeth, she
No one
needs to
said that
dance.
weight now. No one in my weight now. I'm not sure they want the smoke at the moment because
You just lit that fire, though. We know Caris well.
I'm gonna show them the real Elizabeth Oshoba. I'm gonna show them the real fight. Trust me.
I've got no doubt it make. As I've said, style-wise, if I'm a matchmaker or I'm a coach, it's a great fight.
I've got this power in me. I've got this fire in me. So I'm gonna bring it out now. I'm gonna show them how hot it is.
So do you think you've ultimately got the power to hurt Caris? Do you think you've got the power to hurt her?
Yeah, sure. At the moment, I've got the power. I've got everything. I've got everything. They don't want the smoke. I'm sure they don't want the smoke. I just called Sky Nicholson out, and she doesn't want the smoke as well. So I'm not sure anybody want the smoke, but Caris can just come in if she thinks she can go on with me on the ring.
I came across that soundbite yesterday, and it sparked my curiosity. Who is the real Elizabeth Oshoba? An unbeaten up-and-comer in the featherweight division, what is fast becoming one of the deepest, if not the deepest division in all of women's boxing.
Elizabeth hails from Nigeria.
Sporting a professional record, an unblemished record, of 8 wins with no losses, no draws, 5 knockouts, 5 recorded knockouts. Hearing that soundbite, I thought to myself, why is Elizabeth calling out Caris? Caris, of all people. Caris is not yet a champion.
She mentioned Sky, too.
Saying that these fighters don't want to fight. They're not going to want the smoke. Maybe not at this moment, maybe not at this second, though I will admit, I already thought of Karis Artingstall as being somewhat of a dark horse in this division, a fighter that perhaps people are not talking about that much, but a fighter that has the ingredients to be a handful for anyone.
Physical dimensions, the ferocity, the spite, the pedigree. Karis has these attributes. I already thought of Karis as being a dark horse, and then I saw Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Oshoba debuted as a professional in September of 2022, close to 2 years ago, and she's been very busy, very active since then, having last seen action last month on the 29th. Before that, she fought earlier this year in January, so she's already seen action 2 times this year, 3 times last year.
It's a good, steady schedule of activity.
You often hear me say that Sky Nicholson's got generous physical dimensions for the weight, that Karis Artingstall has generous physical dimensions for the weight, and then I saw Elizabeth. Elizabeth has got to stand in somewhere at about 5'9", maybe even 5'10", at 126 pounds strong. Powerful. She's powerful. Long and limber for the weight. Long legs, long arms, to move and punch, use the ring, set traps, and stay behind the jab.
Set up the backhand.
I saw the tape on Elizabeth Oshoba in action. I really liked what I saw.
This is a very malleable fighter that can play the aggressor or the defender equally well, can even handle themselves mid-range to inside, as most fighters with long arms can't.
Elizabeth Oshoba can. Watching her in action, I see a near and apparent threat to not just Karis Artingstall, who she called out on Sky Sports yesterday, but a clear and apparent threat to Raven Chapman, to Sky Nicholson, Sophia Leash, Sarah Liegman, pretty much any unbeaten up-and-comer climbing up those ranks right now.
Elizabeth is a problem.
Big problem, big reach, big punch, big skills. Sparked my curiosity. Karis is not a fighter that a lot of people are in a hurry to fight. Karis herself has been a hot potato, bit of a hot potato up until this point. So the fact that Elizabeth is targeting her...
Yeah, I thought to myself, well, this fighter's very happy with themselves, very confident. Let's see what they're all about.
I saw what Elizabeth is all about, and I have to say, I like what I saw.
It's good.
Very good. And I don't expect that Ben Shalom and the people at Boxer are just going to throw caution to the wind and put Karis in a fight with Elizabeth with nothing on the line, no belt, no marquee value. Not yet.
It's too goddamn risky.
Why would they do it? What Elizabeth Oshoba has to do to get these other fighters in the ring that have money behind them, major promotional outfits, is she's got to climb up the ranks. She's got to use the sanctioning bodies.
It's the only way.
Secure a mandatory position by way of one of the 4 major alphabet organizations, because nobody's just going to roll the dice with her for the sake of rolling the dice.
She's going to have to force some of these girls into the ring. Karis Artingstall among them.
I'll tell you, if the featherweight division wasn't deep enough, Elizabeth Oshoba makes it that much deeper. This is one to watch out for at 126 pounds. In men's junior middleweight news, a quote from reigning WBA junior middleweight champion Israel Madrimov ahead of the biggest fight of his career, the Terence Crawford fight. He says, "I'm not Errol Spence. I'm Israel Madrimov. And this division is my division."
Errol is an alcoholic.
So I see a lot of people trying to call Israel Madrimov a cherry pick for Terence Crawford, even though I don't know who they would prefer that he fight. Who do they prefer?
Sebastian Fundora is out till the fall. Tim Zoo's out too.
You're going to say Jaron Boots Ennis, you're going to say Jaron Ennis, but according to his promoter, he's not going to fight Crawford until he unifies welterweight first. That's literally what he said.
God only knows how long that's going to take.
To unify the welterweight division en route to Terence Crawford, that you want to do one before the other, well, that could take a very long time. So long that Terence might not even be there at junior middleweight by the time you do it. So when you look at the Madrimov fight and you see people complaining about it, based on what's actually going on, who else was he supposed to fight? This guy's unbeaten. This guy's a champion. He's available.
There are easier fights to fight in what is your junior middleweight debut. You understand that this is not Terence Crawford taking his foot off the gas. If he wanted an easier fight, there are lots of fights easier than this one.
It's because they think boxing is a video game. They really do. They view boxing through the lens where size and age don't actually matter, that those are not factors. Kind of like how, you can pick Ryu on one end.
Street Fighter 2?
You can have one guy pick Ryu and one guy pick Zangief, and even though Zangief to the eye is bigger than Ryu,
This is going to go over their heads.
he doesn't actually inflict any more damage than Ryu. Their power level, in spite of their appearance, is the same. And that's how you guys view boxing. You view it like it's a video game, and those are not actual people in there. Like Israel isn't actually bigger and younger than Terence.
Because you view boxing like it's a video game.
Like these are two-dimensional characters in a video game, when in reality, Israel is younger than Terence Crawford, and he is bigger. He does come from a great amateur background. This is not a picnic. If in all your wisdom, you look at this guy in action, and you can't see that he's a quality operator, you don't even know how to distinguish what he's doing right from what someone else is doing wrong, then you're in no position of talking. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. This guy is a threat.
Do you understand that there's a distinct possibility that Israel Madrimov may be the biggest puncher that Terence has ever fought? Bigger even than Errol Spence Jr. Oh yes, bigger than Errol, who couldn't knock out or even knock down a blown-up lightweight Mikey Garcia.
Ahead of the Spence fight, I told you that Terence is a bigger puncher than Spence. Way bigger puncher, stronger finisher.
This guy he's about to fight may be the biggest puncher he ever fought.
Two guys are talking him down because you don't know the ball from the bounce, and let's be honest, quite a few of you are actually angry. You're angry that Terence Crawford beat the crap out of Errol Spence. You're angry that Terence Crawford wants to fight Canelo Alvarez. You're angry at him.
I've noticed that too.
So ever since Terence Crawford declared that he'd be willing to move up in weight and fight Canelo Alvarez at 168 for undisputed, I noticed that a lot of the Canelo fans have turned against him. They're taking shots at him, and I don't know why.
But you're angry that he wants to fight Canelo?
Let me tell you something about Canelo. I'm a big Canelo Alvarez fan, but it's not like you're giving us the David Benavidez fight. You're not. That seems to be all but over. That ship seems to have sailed. Who you are fighting, Edgar Berlanga, I don't want to see that fight.
Fight sucks.
The least you can do to make up for it, for a fight like that nobody was really asking you for, the least you can do is fight Terence.
Because you're not fighting David.
You're not fighting Dimitri. You're not fighting Artur. You're fighting Edgar, who no one thinks is on your level.
But Terence is.
Listen, I don't know. That's the whole point. The whole point is finding out that Canelo Alvarez and Terence Crawford have several things in common. And one of them is that they both compete at the highest levels of the sport. They've both been undisputed champions. Terence Crawford, 2 times.
They're both considered pound-for-pound fighters.
Now, it doesn't look like you're fighting David. It doesn't look like you're going to fight David. That's all right if you fight Terence, because nobody was asking you to fight Edgar. It's the least you can do for your paying public, your fans.
You're gonna beat Edgar. Everybody knows you're gonna beat Edgar. When you do, who are you gonna fight after that anyway? Who are you gonna fight that makes for a big fight? A really big fight for a really big purse? Who? William Skull?
But I don't really understand why Canelo's fans are taking shots at Terrence Crawford.
What are you mad about?
Canelo's got to fight somebody. He's got to fight somebody and somebody with a name after the Edgar Berlanga fight because we all know he's going to beat Edgar Berlanga.
Fight Terrence.
Fight him. This Madrimov fight is but an appetizer, a prelude to what could be a Canelo Alvarez fight if Terrence takes care of business and looks the part. We'll see if he's going to early next month.
In what, a little over 2 weeks' time?
I'm looking forward to it. And super middleweight news, David Benavidez's promoter, Samson Lukowicz, has declared that they intend to take Canelo's Cinco de Mayo date and fight the Artur Beterbiev versus Dimitri Bivol winner on May 3rd of next year in Vegas. Benavidez first planning his return in December.
Oh, so he's not going to sit out the rest of the year?
Well, this is what they're saying now, that he'll come back at least one more time before this year is out, right before the year ends. Who against, I don't know, the winner of Morel versus Kalajdzic, set to go down next month on the undercard of Madrimov versus Crawford.
Maybe David will fight them?
David says he wants to take that Cinco de Mayo date from Canelo Alvarez. That's an empty promise.
Why?
Use that date to fight the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol.
Why is that an empty promise?
Because no promoter is going to want to go head-to-head with Canelo Alvarez so long as his fights sit on that date, for fear that the two cards, the two shows, would cannibalize each other. You don't want to force the paying public to have to choose between you and Canelo. Even if you're in a very good fight, like a fight with the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol.
You don't want to do that.
As neither you, Dimitri Bivol, or Artur Beterbiev are as well known and have the same marquee value, drawing power as Canelo. So you push your luck.
Shoot yourself in the foot.
No promoter worth his weight in nose hair is going to roll the dice for fear that the two events would cannibalize each other. And don't forget that David went from headlining his own shows to boxing on an undercard in his last fight. Do you think he has the drawing power
I don't.
to upstage Canelo Alvarez?
Absolutely not.
If he did, his two box office fights with Caleb Plant and Demetrius Andrade would have sold more, would have brought in better numbers. You don't end up on Gervonta Davis's undercard because of how many pay-per-views you sold in your own fights. No, they did that because you weren't going to sell that much anyway, so we might as well use you to decorate his show.
Gervonta's show.
If you by yourself, on your own, headlining your own show, were good for in excess of 200, 300, or 400,000 pay-per-view buys, they're not going to put your fight on somebody else's undercard. They're going to do a separate show. They didn't because you don't draw that much.
So that's an empty promise from Samson Lukowicz. Kinda like when he said that they ran Canelo Alvarez out of Vegas, that they had usurped him.
Canelo's next fight is in Vegas. Canelo Alvarez's next fight with Edgar Berlanga is set to be going down in Vegas. Matchroom's Frank Smith stated, "Hopefully we'll get Canelo Berlanga done. I honestly don't see the Chris Eubank Jr. fight happening, and I never did see it happening. I think Canelo versus Berlanga is the most likely fight, and hopefully we'll get it done very soon."
The hairy details.
According to Mike Kopinger, the PBC will lead with Matchroom involved on the Berlanga side. Prime Video pay-per-view with DAZN also offering the event similar to Canelo versus Munguia. While Canelo will be a major favorite, the Mexico versus Puerto Rico rivalry should be a commercial success on Mexican Independence Day weekend.
So the PBC is gonna be involved? Why?
Telling you that I'm not sure why. If the PBC themselves aren't even providing the opponent for Canelo Alvarez, then of what use is their involvement? What does Canelo Alvarez get out of having them associated with this show when they're not even providing the bodies?
The platform, maybe.
For distribution of the pay-per-view, distribution of the show, that on one end you'll have DAZN distributing the pay-per-view, and on the other you might have Amazon Prime distributing the pay-per-view to their customers. Exposure is the short answer.
More exposure.
Though I don't think it's necessary, and it's all supposed to go down September 14th at the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas, where Samson Lukowicz a little over a year ago said that David Benavidez had effectively run Canelo out of Las Vegas. Canelo's next fight is in Las Vegas. What are you talking about?
Or Samson Lukowicz is now saying that they're going to take that Cinco de Mayo weekend from him. I don't think so, because you ain't got the bodies.
The drawing power. You say that you're going to use that weekend to fight the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol. That's not up to you. When and where that fight happens, your people aren't the ones that are paying for that. If that happens, it'll be Turkey al-Sheikh paying for that, and they'll decide when and where that fight happens. Not you. You're not the A-side to them, if that's what you're thinking.
Whoever wins that fight becomes undisputed champion. What leverage do you have over them?
That you are preemptively, prematurely dictating terms about when and where a fight would happen. That's not up to you. For all we know, Turkey might want to do that in Saudi.
The one in control is whoever's paying for the show. And Samson Lukowicz ain't paying for the show. Al Heyman ain't paying for the show.
Even with the news that broke late yesterday, that David is going to proceed at light heavyweight. He's not going back to 168. He's going to stay at 175. He's going to target the winner of that fight. Even with that news, I don't really trust that he's going to fight the winner of that fight. And stuff like this is why.
You're in no position to dictate terms to the winner of that fight. You say you're going to run Canelo off of that Cinco de Mayo date. You don't have your hands on the pulse of the Mexican fight fans the way that he does, and you never did, because you're not even a Mexican national.
Jaime Munguia would have a better chance of usurping that date from Canelo than you would.
You're a fraud.
You're pouting. You're mad that you're going to move forward at 175 now, likely because you can't make 168 comfortable anymore. And why would you? Didn't you spend over a decade at that same weight?
Of course you were going to outgrow it sooner or later.
My honest evaluation of David Benavidez and how he looked at 175, he didn't beat Alexander Vajdik. He didn't. He wasn't busier in the fight. He wasn't controlling the action, dictating the terms, the real estate, when and where the fight was happening.
He didn't look like a monster. He never overpowered Vajdik, never hurt him, never buckled him.
Dropped him. We know he didn't stop him. He didn't even hurt that guy's feelings.
Come on.
He went up there and he looked and felt more human than he ever felt at 168, fighting what were undersized opponents, undersized fighters, like David Lemieux, like Demetrius Andre.
With Vajdik, he looked bang average, and Vajdik is 37 years old. But the moment that he wasn't the bigger man,
You started to see the kinks. You started to see the wrinkles. And that's what I've been saying about David Benavidez. As soon as he gets up to 175, that's as soon as he'll stop being a monster.
he's not a monster. Inui, that's a monster. Terrence Crawford, Artur Beterbiev, those are monsters. Usyk,
Monster. But you're bang average.
ordinary.
Basic. You say you're gonna fight the winner of Beterbiev versus Bivol. Do it.
I dare you.
Do it.
I don't think he is. I think it's all talk.
That's what I think.